The fountain of youth, the philosopher's stone, universal panacea, even vampires. For as long as we have known, humans have been obsessed with immortality. Simply the thought of being young and alive forever fascinates us. But again, as far as we have known, no one has been able to successfully reach the state of immortality, or at least a state of decreased aging. That is, until he showed up. Meet Brandon Ewing, also known as Atrioc, the oldest streamer alive. And I know what you're thinking. Yes, he is still alive despite his exterior, but personally, I don't think he looks a year over 113. Jokes aside, what if I told you this man is so old that he was alive during the time Cleopatra was? He is over 2,000 years old, minimum. Now, you're probably saying, Broc, no shot, or yep, but I have irrefutable evidence. And not only that, I think I could even pinpoint what century Atrioc was born. Well, let's look at the facts. It's pretty well known that Atrioc is old, but how old exactly? Well, nobody seems to be sure. User TrocFlock made a history of Atrioc video where he said that Atrioc was born in 1947, but after further research, that number just doesn't make any sense. It's way too young. How did I come to this conclusion? Well, hear it from the man himself.
And first of all, yeah. Second of all, I have been alive for 1,000,000 days. Okay? I don't know how many years that is. I forget, but I have been alive.
1,000,000 days. Now, you may be saying, Broc, this is obviously satire. Of course he hasn't lived for 1,000,000 days. And to that I'd say, this is why you're not a Sigma male. You're not thinking outside the box. So, instead of doing my homework, I decided to go on a more important quest and finally solve this mystery. Let's look at the numbers. 1,000,000 days is about 2,738 years. Now, assuming that he's only lived for that 1,000,000 days, that would set him back to 700 BC. Old ass. That means we at least know he was alive back in 700 BC, but that doesn't really give us an exact date of when he was born, so I did more digging. The clip I found originated from one of his Hollow Knight VODs, so I started there. I watched every single VOD, and the more I watched, the more I discovered. You see, this series always stuck out to me, because a good chunk of it never made it to a video, which is a shame since it's such an incredible series. So what that means is that I can use that for content. But now, I'm starting to understand why. Atrioc, for some reason, talks a lot about his past in these Hollow Knight videos, and often goes into specifics. Let's look at the two controversial clips I found.
Can you tell some stories about when you hung out with Genghis Khan in the good old days? He was way too focused on work. Did you stab Caesar? Look, we all give in to peer pressure now and then. I didn't stab him, obviously. Caesar's my dog. But I didn't. It's like I made the motion, you know?
Now, being friends with Genghis Khan can be a bit controversial, even though I've had some connections with him in the past, but heavily suggesting that you kill Caesar would be a media nightmare, so I'm sure that this is most likely a PR move from Brandon. Although, this doesn't really provide us with new information since both these men lived and died after 700 BC, although it does provide more credibility to his age, and he also mentions that he went to Beethoven's concerts. At this point, I got a lot of proof that he did indeed live for a long time, but 700 BC still seemed too young. So I kept digging until eventually I found a clip I was looking for.
Hypothetically, if I dapped up Ramses II at his coronation, and that feels like yesterday.
Ramses II, he died in 1213 BC and was born in 1303 BC. This is the oldest record I can find of Brandon. Notice how he said coronation? Ramses II was crowned pharaoh in 1279 BC in Egypt. Now we have a place, time, and person. Now, we know Atrioc's father was a soldier. The first army that was created was around 3000 BC, so that leaves about 1800 possible years Atrioc would have been born, which is a lot. Like, way too much still. So I was stuck, and much like his stepsister, I needed help. So I looked into Arizona, where Atrioc claims to be born, and I found some random PDF online that said that the inhabitants learned to grow food there in 2000 BC. And that seemed legit. This made a lot of sense since this is probably where he got his first nickname, Glizzy Hand. So I'm going to make the assumption that between 2000 BC and 1300 BC is when Brandon was born. Because if there is no Glizzy Hand, there is no Brandon. This still leaves about a couple hundred years of a gap though. So it's still up in the air, but by my calculations, my margin of error is only 99.99992%. Math is hard. Now, I think Brandon's birth is what caused agriculture to start in prehistoric Arizona, which again would explain the name Glizzy Hands, which most likely is ancient tongue for hands of the bringer of food. Either that or something I can't go into detail on YouTube, but maybe on another hub. What did Atrioc do between his birth in 2000 BC and meeting the pharaoh? Well, I don't really know. He's covered his tracks pretty well. There's no mentions of him anywhere in the history books, and that remains a mystery to this day. But how did Atrioc manage to live so long, you may ask? Well, I think the answer is pretty simple. Big A is all about the grind set. If the grind never stops, then your heart never stops. And he's been on the grind since day one. And yes, the grind includes war crimes. Do anything to get ahead. Wait, what does it say he was born in 1990? Thanks for watching. If you liked it, subscribe to Diet Broc or Broctodon on Twitch. I love making these videos, and jokes aside, Atrioc, I love your content. I tune in pretty often, and yes, if you were wondering, I am the guy in the picture next to the car that says IES. And no, I don't own or drive it. I'm also planning on making a Hollow Knight video and a Pokemon video, which are mostly comedy focused, so if anyone enjoyed this video, you can go watch those when those come out. Anyway, bye-bye!